Last Monday, my lawyer messaged me. "I'm out of the office, but I thought you should see this," he said. I opened the PDF he had sent, and my heart fluttered as I skimmed the 4 pages of dense legal Spanish. Just to confirm, I texted him back. Did this mean what I thought? It did. They had accepted my appeal, and I had been granted Spanish nationality. Finally, after over 20 years living in Spain. My wife Morena happened to be walking in the door at that point. I told her the news. We both cried. It was quite a moment. The end of my immigrant journey, sort of. Soon I'll be just another Spaniard. I left my last article about Spanish nationality on a cliffhanger. The bureaucrats rejected me. The end. Their official reason for rejecting me was so stupid I didn't want to write about it. They claimed I hadn't proven that I speak Spanish and thus wasn't integrated into Spanish society well enough to be a citizen. Of course, my lawyer had included my Dele Superior Spanish diploma in the papers we had submitted. It was right there, next to my criminal background check, my birth certificate, and the CCSE, the citizenship test of constitutional and sociocultural knowledge that I had also passed. But somehow the bureaucrats hadn't seen the diploma, and instead of doing the legal thing and asking me to come back to present it, they had just rejected my application. We appealed and waited, and finally they said yes. So that's mostly done. On Tuesday, I went to a notary to swear my loyalty to King and Constitution. I renounced, in theory, my U.S. citizenship, which of course is just a formality. And now I wait for the Registro Civil to make me a Spanish birth certificate. With that, I can go to the police for a DNI, the national identity document, and a Spanish passport. This has been a long time coming, and I can't believe the moment is finally here, almost. Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse for all things Spain. As usual, this is Daniel coming to you from beautiful Barcelona. This is episode 118, and it's about the population explosion here in Spain, as well as the update on my Spanish nationality. Most of the update you just heard. I may already be officially Spanish. If not, they're processing the final papers, and I will be soon. So that's the big news, but there's other stuff going on around Spain that I would like to talk about today, specifically Spanish demographics. First, I'd like to give a shout out to Bob. Bob is somebody who has donated before. He donated again. Thank you, Bob. I actually met Bob and his friend Bob about a year ago, I believe. They came to Barcelona and we had some tapas here in Barcelona. Bob is coming back to Spain for another 3 months. I think he does the 90 days in, 90 days out situation that a lot of people are doing these days. So, thank you very much, Bob, for your further support. I appreciate it. If you would like to support the podcast, head over to expatmadrid.com/donate. You can donate anything from €3 on up to however much you feel comfortable with. I appreciate it. It just helps me do this more than other things, basically. I have, 20 different projects, and I allocate my time according to what I'm enjoying and what earns money. So I enjoy this, but it doesn't earn very much money. If you would like to support the cause, get some more podcasts out of me, you can do that, like I said, at expatmadrid.com/donate. So, the Spanish population is booming. And that is our other topic today. La Vanguardia reports that the Spanish population is now 49.3 million. That is the largest it has ever been, and the graph they publish shows the number rising from 43 million in 2005 to the current figure. Population growth of 6 million people in just 20 years. And it's not that the Spanish are having more babies. A lot of that population is foreign-born. There are, according to the same article, 650,000 new foreigners who have moved to Spain in just the last year. The top 3 immigrant groups around Spain are Colombians, Moroccans, and Venezuelans, which isn't a big surprise or a change from past years, and the population growth is being felt all over. The number of residents has increased in every comunidad autónoma, as well as the city of Ceuta. Only Melilla has a lower population than it did a year ago. Spain has 17 comunidades autónomas, which are further divided into 50 provinces. There are also 2 autonomous cities on the north coast of Africa, the aforementioned Ceuta and Melilla. Remember that for when it's time for you to take the citizenship test. So the population growth is huge, and it's mostly because of immigration. I moved to Spain in 2004 with no idea I was part of a demographic, but that was one of the peak years for Spanish immigration. Living down in Madrid, it seemed like half of the people I met were Ecuadorian or Peruvian. A lot of people were coming to get jobs in construction or otherwise work on the housing boom. I became an English teacher. Soon after, the bubble burst. Remember when the biggest problem in Spain was that there was too much housing? Now it seems like the biggest problem is that there is too little housing. I guess getting those extra 6 million people in here have altered the situation significantly. Anyway, during the Great Recession, the population of Spain actually shrunk a bit. Spaniards left to find work elsewhere, and immigrants were given lump sum unemployment payments if they would just go home. Language teachers like myself did fine through the whole thing because a lot of people were unemployed and had little to do besides learn English or German and contemplate whether they should leave the country. After the crisis, immigration picked up again, flattening out briefly for the COVID panic before hitting its current upward trend in early 2022. Now, the registered population is over 49 million, but that comes with some caveats. Around 14% are foreign, and 20% were born in other countries. The discrepancy is that a lot of people born in foreign countries have become Spanish in the meantime. So the population of Spaniards can grow even if the number of Spaniards by birth shrinks. The article in La Vanguardia actually says that the number of official Spaniards increased by almost 25,000 in the second quarter of 2025, largely due to people like me being granted Spanish nationality. In case you're wondering, I have a whole article about the renunciation of U.S. citizenship part of this story. I think it's a podcast also. Let me check. Okay, yeah, episode 54 is about the idea of renouncing your U.S. citizenship in order to get Spanish nationality. Episode 100, by the way, is my previous article on my Spanish nationality process, the one that ended on the cliffhanger where I was rejected. Pretty good article, I think. A lot of emotion went into that one. It's also a podcast. You can read on the blog, expatmadrid.com. Most of these episodes, but also as a podcast, it's episode 100, and you can listen to it. Okay, so the short version is that Spain doesn't recognize dual citizenship with the US, only with former Spanish colonies, so you have to renounce your other nationality when you become Spanish. That's what I did when I swore loyalty to Spain. But there's nothing legally binding about it, and you can keep your US passport. In order to actually give up U.S. citizenship, you have to do a long, expensive process with the consulate. It is by no means obligatory that you do so upon acquiring another passport, and you don't lose your U.S. citizenship just by saying something to a Spanish notary. Obviously, talk to a lawyer and don't base your whole life on rumors you heard from some guy at a pub quiz, or for that matter, on a blog. The situation varies by country. Actually, when I wrote this article, somebody commented that he had to actually give up his U.S. citizenship in order to become German. In Germany, they make you go through the whole process of giving it up with the U.S. consulate in Germany or wherever. And when you present them with the document saying that you have given up your U.S. citizenship, then they will make you German. So I have not fact-checked that in any way. I'm just saying that I'm talking about giving up U.S. citizenship in order to become Spanish. The situation in other countries could be very different. Anyway, now in theory, I will be entering the U.S. on my U.S. passport and entering Spain on the Spanish one. and there are some rights that Spanish citizens have that will be new to me. For example, the right to choose among several incompetent and corrupt political parties in local and national elections. That's something I've been talking about on recent episodes as well. You could take a look at episode 116 for the latest on the corruption in the Spanish government. In any case, the idea of my own Spanishness seems a bit silly to me, not least because I look so un-Spanish that even if I live to be 80 years old, I don't expect anyone to confuse me with one of the locals. Still, I'm happy about the whole thing. My journey out of illegality was not easy. I wrote about immigrant life several weeks ago. Episode 114 is my long and very emotional episode about immigrant life, if you would like to take a listen over there. Anyway, there were some tough times as I was trying to get legal, and for years on end, there was no indication that any of this was going to go well for me. So the positive thing about all of this is that Spain offers a clear path to citizenship, and at least in my case, walking that path has made me more committed to Spain than I would be otherwise. What does it mean to be Spanish? In Western countries in the 21st century, nationalist feeling is mostly discouraged. Loving your country seems sort of cringe, doesn't it? And as I explored in my article and podcast episode about symbols of Spain, that is episode 96, if you would like to have a listen. Maybe you should just listen to all the previous episodes, get caught up here. Seems like every 5 seconds I'm pausing the recording to go look for some previous episode. As I was saying, in my article and podcast episode on symbols of Spain, I talked about how a lot of people these days want nothing to do with traditional Spanish culture. In the US, we sometimes say baseball and apple pie to talk about traditional Americana. Here in Spain, the equivalent would be bullfights and paella, or maybe Catholicism and sangria, or flamenco and jamón. I don't know, it's not quite the same. But the current version of Spain began with the Christian reconquest of territories that had been ruled for centuries by Muslims. Christianity was the bedrock of Spanish identity for a very long time. Later, the dictator Francisco Franco instituted what he called National Catholicism as part of his ideology, and I get the impression that a lot of people got a bit sick of the whole thing at that point. Your average Spanish person these days is not very religious, probably wouldn't go to a bullfight, and doesn't drink sangria. Flamenco is more regional than national. In other words, Spanish identity is complicated. There are also parts of Spain in which significant minorities would prefer to be their own country. Catalonia is one, and there's also the Basque country, and to a lesser extent, Galicia. Article 2 of the 1978 Constitution, that's the one I swore loyalty to, differentiates between the indissoluble unity of the Spanish nation, nation with a capital N, and the lowercase n nationalities and regions that make it up. And Wikipedia's article on Spanish nationalism seems to say that you're a Spanish nationalist if you believe in the indissoluble unity of Spain at all. In other words, if you believe that Spain is one country and not several, you are a Spanish nationalist. Actually, now that I think about it, the word nationalism is a word used mostly by the independence groups. I hear about Catalan nationalism a lot more than I hear about Spanish nationalism. Up until around the year 2000, Spain was not a melting pot like the US. It was more like a regional melting pot made up of Castilians, Catalans, Extremeños, Andaluces, Basques, Gallegos, etc. These days, though, we've got people from everywhere you can imagine, and the one certain thing is that Spanishness is going to look a lot different moving forward. So, now I'm Spanish, and I guess some things are going to change. A conversation I have a couple of times a month goes like this. Someone asks where I'm from. I say I'm from the US, but I've lived here for many years. And they reply, "Oh, so you're Spanish now." I'm pretty sure they mean Spanish in my way of being, Nobody cares what type of ID card you're carrying around. But I always say, no, I'm fully American. I've just lived here for a long time. Now I guess I'm going to have to update that response to account for my new legal situation. Should I tell people I'm Spanish but I grew up in the US? Should I try to come up with some sort of more nuanced explanation? I'm not really sure. I'll probably develop something as we go along. I don't expect to start feeling Spanish as soon as I get the passport and whatever it means to feel Spanish. On the other hand, when I got my residence permit after several years of illegality, it definitely changed my personality. I got a lot cockier, actually, because I could just walk around like I was supposed to be here, like I had every right to loiter on the street corner. I didn't feel like I needed to keep my head down anymore. It was a magical experience after several years living in the sort of fear that you have when you're an illegal immigrant. So in a few months, I might be writing to tell you what being Spanish feels like, or maybe I'll be slicing ham or learning to dance flamenco, or eating paella at the beach. Either way, I'll let you know. Viva España. That's about all I've got for today. Immigration is a very hot topic these days, and I have been on various sides of the immigration issue, living it in my own flesh as an immigrant here in Spain. Let me just tell you, it is more complicated than you're imagining. If you're, a person who has not lived in multiple countries, it is much more complex than you probably think. And of course, I wrote at the beginning of this article/podcast that this was the end of my immigrant journey. I'm not at all confident in that statement. I may feel like an immigrant for the rest of my life. We will find out. It's going to be a whole adventure. I have spoken quite a bit about my love for Spain in previous episodes here. Let me find the big one. Yes, episode 70. Why do Americans love Spain? You can just check that one out if you would like. There's also episode 23, which is things I hate about Spain, because if you live in a place for a long enough period of time, you are going to have all kinds of conflicting emotions about it. It reminds me of something I read about marriage recently, which is when you get married, you're choosing the person who's going to annoy you every day for the rest of your life. Well, when you move to another country, you are choosing the country that is going to annoy you every day for the rest of your life. That's just part of the game we're playing around here. If you are thinking about moving to Spain or otherwise need help with your legal situation, talk to my lawyer Roberto at Melcart Abogados. Melcart, Melcart, Abogados, Abogados. You can go to melcartabogados.com. You could just put that into Google and it will pop up if you spell it almost correctly as well. Anyway, Roberto over there at Melcart Abogados is the one who got this done for me. Tell him that Daniel sent you and I might get some sort of kickback from him, as a supporting the podcast type thing. You can also go to continentalis.eu. Continentalis, just exactly how it sounds, the word continent and then ALIS at the end. Continentalis.eu. Also does the bureaucracy stuff. I think they just do US stuff, but if you need like a background check, a marriage certificate, a birth certificate, the apostille of The Hague on any of these things, a sworn translation, etc., they'll get it done. I use them for the background check and birth certificate, plus the apostille, plus the translation for all of those things. So use promo code Daniel over at continentalis.eu to get a discount on any of that stuff, and I also get a commission from that. You could go to expatmadrid.com/walks and sign up for a private tour of the Prado Museum, for example. I did this last year. You're in for an hour before anybody else gets in the museum with a very small group. It's wonderful. They've also got other experiences here in Barcelona and in other places in Europe. expatmadrid.com/walks, that is walks tours. Then there's Devour Tours for food tours in Madrid, Barcelona, Seville, and San Sebastian. as well as other places around Europe. Check out expatmadrid.com/devour. That's just an easy link right to the page where you need to go. expatmadrid.com/devour. They'll take you and get you some of the best traditional food in any of these places. It's another small food tour with tapas. Sometimes they take you around a local market, etc. Just check it out, expatmadrid.com/devour. Highly recommended, founded by my friend Lauren, who I interviewed several episodes ago here. You could go on a bike tour. Go to biketourinspain.com. Talk to Raul over there. He has bike tours in several areas of Spain. I have done 2 of them. I did the route of Don Quixote down in La Mancha, and I did the Extremadura bike tour over in the Wild West. You can check both of those out, or his other routes. I think he's doing one now from Madrid to Valencia. He's doing one across La Rioja, the wine country. Lots of interesting places that you can explore by bicycle, which is a very different way of getting around. I loved it. Biketourinspain.com. I don't get a commission for that, but Raul over there is a supporter of the podcast, and I would like to pay it back to him any way I can. Like I said, you can donate at expatmadrid.com/donate. Just send me a few bucks, or you can send me many bucks. Anything that you can send my way helps. expatmadrid.com/donate. You can go to my YouTube channel, Learn Spanish with Daniel. I have new videos almost every week there for people who are learning Spanish. Learn Spanish with Daniel. Just put that into YouTube and you will find it. The most recent video I did is about verbs: jugar, tocar, ganar, perder, to talk about playing games, winning, losing, tying, etc. You know, just different sports and games vocabulary. Nada más. Espero que pases un muy buen día. I hope you have a great day wherever you are in the world, and hasta la próxima. Bye.